CARS16 by Barnhouse Company. Read by Chris Rush. Pat and Mater were in Tallinn's railway, visiting the end of the line, where people get out and walk about. Mater was wanting to find a surprise for McQueen and Sally, so it would remind them of Radiator Springs. Then his new friend would show him Cartown. "I've been hearing quite a lot of tackles from you two," said Tallinn. "It sounds as if that man was about to follow you onto my train." "That man was Scrap McDouch," said Mater. "He kidnapped Pat when he was wanting to visit you." "A good thing we prevented him," said Pat. "Oh, I've heard about that family. They told me they moved to Scotland, and that house is never restored. Drivers said it needed a new owner," said Tallinn. "Why not make it a summer house? It can brighten up the forest," said Pat, coming up with an idea. "Oh, that would be perfect. I'll tell my controller about it." Tallinn went back to the first station. Mater and Pat drove away from the railway. Meters away, they found what they were looking for. There was a route that went up a hill, and at the top was a cave. It seemed a good place to rest and do a train spot. The friends had it taken with the camera, which Pat brought from the Cartown Zoo. "That definitely will remind them of home," said Pat. "Why don't we look at the beach?" "Sure thing," said Mater. "I wouldn't mind digging my wheels into the sand." They went on further away from the end of the line till, after a minute of driving, came to the beach. But as soon as they got there, they didn't expect to find someone else that came here first. Or something faded. On the sand was a car, who was a racing car. It had some live when it was racing, but retired after a crash. "Hello? Who's that?" said Pat. "How on earth did it come here? It needs a boat." Mater noticed it too, then realized that it was a friend who died. "Doc Hudson, can you tell me how you got here without a boat?" he asked him. "Oh, you know very well that I came here just by driving across the sea, Mater," said Doc Hudson, turning round to face them. "I've been watching from the skies to see how McQueen is getting on with racing, and how he and his new friend became joint winners." "I knew it," said Mater. "You're a ghost car. So what are you doing on the beach?" "Looking round the world to see how much things have changed during my racing," said Doc. "But I saw a new change of you visiting Australia and still visiting Radiator Springs." "That was a visit to Tyler McQueen and me did," And we've made a new friend by the name of Wee Georgie Wood, explained Mater. By the way, my new friend Pat Pat, I rescued him from a McDowell's house. Nice to meet you, said Pat Pat. I'm a huge fan of that racing car. Plus, he went on, I entered the Cartown 500. He'd be surprised to see it if he visits where I live. A shame I never saw Cartown, kid, said Doc. But I reckon you raced there like I told McQueen. Well, I best get back across the sea. But you might sink, said Mater. Cars are heavy. Not when I'm a ghost I can't sink. See how I manage. And after he said goodbye, he, to their surprise, went driving over the water, and when he was far away, he disappeared. McQueen's going to be surprised about this encounter, said Pat Pat. This big life anyone can be unexpectedly full of surprises, said Mater. At least we're having the beach to ourselves. After their resting visit, they went back to Tallylin. The old engine came back to meet the cars so he could take them back. Controller says he can get the house restored, he said. It will take days to get the windows replaced. I hope the new owner will like it, said Pat Pat. Scrap won't be pleased about it when he hears about it, said Mater. Oh, haven't you heard? He's been taken to the prison center. He never goes anywhere or does anything except rest on a bed, said Tallylin. He'll be having many miserable days to come. All about now. I've got your trucks cleaned after the leaf cleanup. Mater and Pat Pat got onto the trucks. Then, after Tallylin switched sides, headed back to Turin. They thanked him for the ride, then decided to find a way to get to Cartown, for the harbour was too far in London, and America was too far on the other side of the world. Tallylin told me there's a shop somewhere in this village. It's got a room with a door, said Pat Pat. It's our secret chance of travelling to a far place, which will be quicker than a plane flight and a boat ride. Hey, look, there's a car shop. I wonder if we can find anything to take in there, said Mater. We should take something back to help us remember many adventures. That's Hilltop Treasure, said Pat Pat. It's been here for many years, and what it sells is books of life history. So they drove to the shop away from the station. When they got to its window, they saw the owner that was closing up for the day. Oh, hello, he said. You came at the right moment to buy these books. We're also looking for a room that has a door, said Pat Pat. It's for us to look at. In you go then. I hope you like the history of Tannington's Railway, said the owner. Mater and Pat-Pat took a book each, then began looking for the door. Eventually they found it, so turned the knob to drive through. Inside they found themselves in a room with a table full of drawing things for anyone to make art. This looks like fun, said Mater. Shall we draw something to take back to Pat-Pat? I was thinking the same thing, Mater, said Pat-Pat. I'll draw what we took from our drive to the beach. Mater drew the mountain route, and Pat-Pat drew the beach with Doc Hudson on it. Then they drove through the door. After driving through the doorway, they found themselves in a town with a petrol station. It was called Cartown Gas, where long ago Pat-Pat had a petrol can to take some high-tech petrol for his racing. Welcome to Cartown, Mater, said Pat-Pat. Now we need to find a shop to get my photos processed. There's one just nearby. Oh, lost bonnets. This is so new to me, said Mater. I never thought what you got for racing can remind me of McQueen's racing. You must think me different, but when you said Cartown is next to Friendlyville, I was thinking that I would get lost, so I need a map of your place and Finley's. You can look in next door for map, said Pat-Pat. This is a perfect time for you to look round when finding Friendlyville, but right now we need a wash. The route in Wales was messy. They found a car wash just near the petrol station, so as to look clean for Pat-Pat's hometown. Then they went to 2 shops for photos and a map. Well, Mater came out with 2 maps, for he didn't know much of Friendlyville yet. I've got my photos processed. Now we can visit my house to find the photo book. Perhaps I can show you my moments from my past adventures, said Pat-Pat. And I've got 2 maps of your hometown and Finley's, said Mater. One does need to learn new things in a different country. I know Friendlyville too. Finley told me a shop in the far side of the city. He and his friends avoided a cruise trip. What's it called? The World of the Past. You'll soon find out when you get to it. Pat-Pat took Mater to his house just away from the town. In it, he found a photo book of his photos full of the past adventures from when he saved the zoo, traveled through time, entered the race, and plenty more. There's me with the racing tires, said Pat-Pat. I had to have them off my original wheels so they can help me to grip the road. My, that's the same as what Cruz had when she had her own, said Mater. And these are the new photos that can help me to remember. Look here, Mater. I've got a printer here. Perhaps I can scan the photo of the mountain road, print it out, then you can take it to your friends. I've got a computer as well. Pat produced his home computer, which Mater did not see when he came in. It's box-shaped, Pat, said Mater. The world these days have Windows 10, and XPs are not popular anymore. True, but it's Windows everything, so it always changes to any computer brand, and it's changed to what you said, explained Pat. How come it's everything? A person named Gumby put it all together. Windows 98, XP, 1, 8, and 10. But let's just say it's Windows M, standing for Windows Magic. Pat scanned the photo. Once it finished, it was printed out. Thank you. I can't take yours when it's one, said Mater. Say, did we notice the sky was dark? Oh, it's 8 o'clock. The shops were open till 9 o'clock. We could share the house. You can't go home sleepy, said Pat. Thanks. It's safer than in the scrapyard. Belonging to scrap. They settled for the night after Pat closed the garage door. Good night then, Mater. It's a perfect holiday for you to take, but you'll be leaving the next day at 3 a.m., not 6 a.m., said Pat. Why do I have to leave at 3 a.m., Pat? Asked Mater. Well, there's a black car that's an outsider. He came across the speedway in Cartown an hour ago when I was visiting Wales. He got kicked out from my coach who didn't want him. Mater knew who the black car was, so thought better tell him about his history. That's Jackson Storm. He's got no sense in him about letting anyone beating him. Pat had his mouth down when he heard the name for the first time in years of his life. That's who the black car is, tearing up my town. Pour out the oil can, Mater. What was he brooding for? It was nothing, really. He was in second place, losing to Cruz, who crossed the line first. It's not our fault of sharing hers and McQueen's victory. It's a good thing she's with us. Sterling almost took her back to the training center, little varmint of a new sponsor, and we never saw him again. That's strange. I've read in my new book that he wanted McQueen to quit racing and become rich and do TV ads. I find it unfair. I know, and thanks for reading our new movie book. After the little chat, they slept. The next morning, Mater woke up at 3 o'clock. He turned on his headlight to look round for a piece of paper to let his new friend know where he was heading. He found it, wrote what he was to say, stuck it on his front desk, then opened the garage door to drive out. Then he closed it and started driving out of Pat-Pat's property, finding the road to Fenleyville. He drove through the town with the petrol station, then went on to another going through a bit of the country valley. He was getting a feeling that he was like an old car escaping scrap day when modern cars were built. Mater was only brown and blue, and he wasn't really in trouble just yet. But he had a wild guess that Jackson had been following him. If there is one thing that good cars hate, it is bad ones. It was as he thought about his talk with Pat-Pat before they went to sleep that he remembered about being at the petrol station. They were talking about what to do with getting themselves 2 maps and photos processed that they didn't see the black car heading to Cartown Speedway, nor saw him kicked out from the racing coach. To his horror, he recollected after stopping that Jackson Storm must have stalked him to Margate. Then he must have gone to Turin to find the shop with the secret room, so he must have got here first before him. Now he might follow him again to hopefully find his home next to Forest Hill Farm. Now he had to put a stop to his plot somehow. Mater continued on. He came to the next town with 2 routes. One went to Chuck's tire shop, Rover's Space Cafe, and Crankcase's junkyard. The other went to the farm where Pat-Pat went to find the grocery shop some crops. Before he took them, he heard a quiet engine sounding. With a turning look, he noticed some headlights on the road. "Where do you think you're going, Russ Bucket? Someone has to tell me where Lightning lives," Jackson's voice said. Mater, remembering his tricks he put on him, decided to give him the danglefish. With a quick slip, he drove off to the left, finding Crankcase's yard. Jackson, realizing he would get no answer, started stalking him. Mater came to the other side of the town and drove into the junkyard, hiding behind some crates. His fast driving knocked a can of paint on the ground, which gave him the idea of leading Jackson to what he was trying to look for. He went to the back of a large shed when he felt his front hit a bush. It came right off its roots. Wow! Yuck! I don't have time for a grand bath, exclaimed Mater. When he turned round, he noticed something very extraordinary. On the ground, in front of his eyes, was a hole. With a strong light, Mater moved slowly forward to look at what was in it. He heard a voice after putting his head closer to the round gap. "Hey, Finley, we should visit the other town to find our secret room to the Door of Adventures." "Oh yeah, Gorby. We might find it quicker than any boat and plane trip." "Aha!" said Mater. "Friendlyville. That's where I need to go, and I'll keep luring Jackson." He was about to go in through the hole when he heard Jackson's engine again, and the lights he saw were lurking in his direction. "Where are you, Rust Bucket?" he shouted. Mater quickly dropped himself through the hole. In no time of a minute, he found himself in Friendlyville. The main road was just meters away from the town, and he was lucky to see it was asleep. He started sneaking towards it. But as soon as he reached it, Jackson appeared. He spotted Mater driving away from his eyesight. "I'll get you off the road, you rust bucket," he said. Mater had never been on this highway road in all his years of rolling on his 4 wheels. It seemed the right way to get to the city, and it was empty, so was the other one going back to Friendlyville. For a minute he was enjoying himself, but remembered he still had his stalker on his hook. Looking in his side mirror, he saw the black car far behind, and was about to catch up. In his haste to keep his distance, Mater went driving to 100. While doing so, his exhaust pipe was spitting out some mud which somehow got in it when he crashed into the bush. It got Jackson in the mouth. "Oh! Yuck! Watch it!" he cried. It was great fortune for Mater that Jackson had, alas, swallowed the mud about to spread to his mechanisms. It started to slow him down, but he still tried to catch up. At last, Mater came to the city. He darted into it, finding the other side. He soon found it, but came to a stop, needing to see where his stalker was lacking. He was not for an hour, as the sun was about to come up. It would tell him that he was not stalking him, or maybe he must have gone on a boat, which to him has a long journey to get to Tasman Sodor. He was about to go into the shop when he noticed the door was not open, but as if by magic, Princess Luna appeared. "Morning, Mater," she said. "Do you want to get into the shop?" "Yes, I do, Your Majesty, Luna," said Mater. "I'm needing to head for home, but I want to stop Jackson Storm. I saw him take the boat, so his journey will be a slow one," said Luna. "I'll unlock the door for you, but keep it closed. Sweetabelle doesn't like it open at night." "Thanks. Good luck." Mater was pleased to be in the shop. He looked around for the door to find the drawing room. After finding a spare key that Sweetabelle left for earlier shifters, he unlocked it and went inside the drawing room with another table of drawings. "This is like the other shop in Turin," thought Mater. "But I don't have time for another draw make." Then he found the other door that led to adventures. It was closed, but it was unlocked. He turned the handle, and it swung open quite easily, without a creak. With the last drive-through, he found himself in a tipyard, but it wasn't Margate. He saw a sign of a building saying, "The Granocchi Recovery Shop." He gave a sigh of relief. He had arrived home on Tasman Sodor. Phew! I've taken quite a second role in England. First role in Cartown, and now Friendlyville, said Mater. What achievement! He was about to head for home, but stopped himself to notice the sky, for the color was black, and it was very late. He couldn't go home all sleepy. He also realized he had no watch. Feeling a little embarrassed, he started driving out of the tip. As he got to the main road, he saw Sheriff, who was out on a night patrol. "Hello, Mater. What are you doing in Granocchi's tip?" he asked. "About to leave it, Sheriff, when I'm late to get home, but I can't, not when there's Jackson Storm after me." He told him the story about his visit to Wales, rescuing Putt-Putt from the McDowell's Manor, Putt-Putt telling him Jackson Storm kicked out of Cartown Speedway after stalking him, all that for wanting to know where he, Lightning, and the friends live, and wanting the red racing car out of the race. "I thought he was giving up his nasty visit," said Sheriff. "The world's still not happy with him, as he is a miserable brute." "What we want is him scrapped. If he comes across me, I'm gonna give him another swing from the hook," said Mater. "I'll just check Devonport before I follow you home. Good night." And Sheriff left. Mater started to leave Granocchi. "Home, here I come," he said. Jackson, meanwhile, was arriving at Devonport with using a lifeboat, which he stole from the large ship. He got off at a dock and went looking for the main road, until he saw Sheriff coming. Desperate, he started hunting Mater. Mater was driving away from Glenorchy, heading all the way to Kingston, keeping a lookout for his stalker, knowing he couldn't have him in the town, and even the mirrors. There wasn't any sign of the black car, but he was still concerned because he had his unanswered question. How did he get to Kingston in the first place? He recollected himself leaving his home, and he didn't see him hiding behind the Margate train. I don't think I've checked that place, Mater thought. When he went through Hobart, a sudden noise of an engine made him get off the road and look up at something. With a screech of tires, Jackson came at his view. "Got you, rust bucket!" he shouted. "I'll get you dunked in the water if you're not telling me where Lightning lives." But before he could do anything, Mater's hook swung out quickly and caught Jackson by the front bumper. "That's enough, you varmint," said Mater. He gripped the black car's front so hard, he started swinging. He swung, and he swung, and he swung, and he swung. Then he let go. "Help!" There was a mighty crash. Jackson had landed right in a barge with a big bump on his front. His steering mechanism was broken, and his headlights were damaged. "Ow!" he exclaimed. Mater had to fish him out of the barge just as Sheriff arrived. "Jackson Storm, you've been nothing but a bully. We thought you were scrapped, but you somehow got a new engine. Now Mater's dumped you in the barge, damaging your steering mechanism. Every car shop and tip won't give you spare parts now that you've turned into a beggar." Jackson suddenly realized the world was not wanting to have him anymore, so said his last word. "I confess," he said, "I wanted the world to remember me, not Lightning, as the spots of racing is changing, and I was the first of the new gents to replace him, but he and that yellow car somehow got me to lose the race. So I began plotting to get him out of the race." Mater, still hanging on to him, looked at his face sternly and said, "Now tell the truth. What were you wanting Lightning out of the race for?" Sterling was wanting to have him cash in, and when he wanted the yellow car out of teaching the red car to beat me, he knew he had to be stopped. Jackson confessed his tale. "So that's why you and him wanted my friend out of the race," said Mater. "Well, now you've told us your confession, it's time to do the method of helping an only racing car, And that's taking your pieces apart, like what happened to Godred. When Mater came home to his shed, he met his friends and told them about Jackson's confession, and he showed them the black car in pieces. I always think him as a greedy racer, said Lightning. We'll not have him tearing up any road. Serves him right for pressing me in the wall, said Cruz. He won't talk to us. His engine's taken out. That will be the last thing he wouldn't expect, said Mater. I'll put him in the shelves, said Sally. Sterling won't be pleased when he hears about it. We'll tell Texas, the father of the King Racer, I helped. But my new sponsor can't be talked to. He doesn't have much sense in me racing for the years to come. Or old and new things working together. Too right, Mater. So that was that. Jackson's Storm was seen for the last time and now is taken apart so any racing car can have his parts to mend him or her. And Lightning continued his racing with Cruz, as they have been doing it for years, ever since they met at the training center. As for Sterling, well, he was having a lot to think about, as he was told that one of the new gens were taken apart for parts. But I don't think we should bother about seeing him, as he never comes to Tasman Sodor. Mater, Sally, McQueen and Cruz later that night were resting and looking at the sun setting. They were pleased with what they achieved as the years go by, including life. They can face new things and hope to find more adventures. It's been many years since you first came to Radiator Springs, Lightning, said Sally. And what Mater told us about Doc Hudson at the beach was extraordinary. And out of a time of life. A ghost car can be full of surprises, Sally, said Lightning. Smokey was of great support because no one told me about Doc's history, was his crew chief, and he was mine, and I was Cruz's crew chief. My wish did come true, as I was to race for Dynaco. I like my new livery, said Cruz. If only my family could see me doing it. Plus, learning about Radiator Springs and Tasman Sodor was a new experience. I saved Queen from when a bomber had put a bomb on me, and I was knighted. Sure, said Mater. The world's gonna have us exploring places. I wonder if Pat I told you guys can visit us. Who knows, Mater? He might find the time. Anyway, we better sleep. We've got many things to do. And so we've come to the end of the 16th adventure. And it's time for us to go home. Just like Lightning and his fans. The end.